Well, once again, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Loremasters of the Absurd, the podcast where we cover the absurd films of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. This is our starting the year off with a bang month, and so with that, we have another banger. As always, you have your host. As always, you have your host, Loremaster Jeff, myself, Loremaster Eli. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
Usually I'm doing pretty good. Until I listen to you on what movies I should watch.
You can't put all the blame on me for this, all right?
I blame Mel Gibson for this movie.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people stand behind you for that.
I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? I feel like we both have a lot to say. Should we just get into this movie?
Let's just start. Yep.
Cut out the small talk. All right. Let's just get into it.
This gem. We'll get into it.
Is that what you're calling it?
Yep.
All right. Well, if you want to call it that. Tonight, as I said, to go on with our starting the year off with a bang, we have another action for you. Another what I would say a lot of people consider staple action. I think that'd be fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say that. I wouldn't, but you could.
I mean, this is one of those action movies a lot of people quote. There's an iconic line in this action movie.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a staple. Tonight, we're talking about the first Lethal Weapon. So before we get into it, let's read the back to VHS cover, shall we?
Let's do it.
I don't know how you're gonna feel about this one.
Well, can't be worse than the movie, so.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Mel Gibson is LA cop Martin Riggs. Reckless, relentless, and lethal. His Vietnam training and Sub-Zero Flashpoint are a volatile combination for a man with such chilling credentials. Recently widowed, Riggs is a time bomb waiting to explode. The only question is, who will he take with him? Riggs' new partner, Roger Murdoch, fears he knows the answer. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover's unlikely partnership takes cop thrillers into a new dimension. Lethal Weapon's hair-trigger excitement and stunning set pieces perfectly frame the Gibson-Glover relationship so that the film will not only be remembered as a superb thriller, but also as one of the great buddy movies. That's the back of that.
I don't know what Flashpoint Zero.
I don't either.
I don't know what that. Nobody ever that wasn't mentioned one time in this movie. And unless I'm missing something.
First time I read this, I felt like whoever wrote it had a stroke midway through, and they're just finish it.
Just put words in there.
Finish it before you go to the hospital. Just finish it. Because even now, I read it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
But there's parts of it that are worded so weird, it don't make sense. I feel like when I'm reading it out loud, I'm reading like a first grader, and I'm sounding it out.
Yeah, because it's worded odd. Good job, Timmy. You read the book. Good job.
It's worded real weird. But yeah, so we watched Lethal Weapon. So Jeff, was this your first time watching? And what did you think?
Not the first time. First time in a long time. I mean, I was really young when I watched this movie, and I have not seen it since, and for good reason. So, didn't care for it, to say the least.
Yeah.
What about you?
Once again, somehow you and I have magically come together and ruined a core childhood experience because I grew up I remember loving this movie growing up.
This
Mel
was 87.
Yeah,
right?
Riggs was crazy.
I was probably 10 when I saw it, which had been 3 or so years after it released.
Yeah.
So I was coherent enough to. I should have known better, to be honest with you.
I don't know. It was weird. I grew up liking this movie. I probably haven't watched this movie for, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 10, maybe 15 even.
Wow. It's been much longer than that for me. So
yeah, I remember my friends in high school, we liked this movie. It had that iconic line, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah, we get it. You said it 10 times.
Well, that was a crazy thing.
shut up. Like, we get it. Like, it made me so mad every time he said it after. Like, I'm like, we get it. Like, okay, you don't have
Well,
to keep saying it, you know?
it's
Just
weird.
like Riggs is like, I'm crazy. Oh, like honestly, Riggs' character annoyed me so much in this movie because like he was supposed to be this like loose cannon. He just come out off acting like a jerk off. Like
Mhm.
I hated him so much in this movie.
You know
Now that I
what's
rewatched it.
you know what's crazy is like when I before I rewatch this, because I like to rewatch them as close to recording as possible. So I
Yeah,
rewatched it
yeah.
today,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember when I sat down, I was like thinking about like scenes. I was like, oh, there's this couple scenes with Mel Gibson. He's Riggs. He's crazy, and then Murdoch. I thought he only said the line twice,
Mm-hmm.
and then like as I'm watching it, you're right. Like every scene is Mel Gibson just trying to be crazy, and every other scene is Danny Glover saying he's too old for this shit.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about the too old for this thing, right?
Okay.
So something doesn't quite add up here, and when you think about it, okay, I guess, but like, so both of these guys were in Vietnam, right?
Correct. Yeah.
They were
Mhm.
both in Vietnam, but somehow this one guy's like, oh, I'm too old for this shit, and the other guy's like this young super cop. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you know what I mean?
You're right. You're right. You're
So
right.
assuming that
How long was the Vietnam War? Because even
well,
if
they
like,
made the thing is they made specific year references, right?
oh, they did.
So
You're right.
because Danny Glover said something about 65, and Mel Gibson said something about 69. Like, when in 69, I killed a guy with a paperclip or whatever he said.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So like they made very specific references to stuff, right? And the year based on the yearbook, right, didn't make any sense based on there was another year that said it was 1984, right? But
Right.
the yearbook, that girl said the class of 83, but she was supposedly 22 years old. So she was either dumb as shit and kept failing high school and didn't graduate until she was 22, or they don't know how to tell years apart. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh my
Because the girl
God.
that got killed, she died, right? And they
Yeah.
made a reference to her 22-year-old female, white female,
Right.
right? But her high school yearbook that Danny Glover got in the mail as police evidence, like people just send people police evidence in the mail, apparently, in LA. Like, but it said class of 83, which would mean she was 21 or 22 when she graduated. Based on those numbers, there's a lot of holes in this whole thing. Like,
Whoa. I
and,
didn't even
and
realize all that.
maybe I'm like too analytical about it, but like I'm looking at because like as soon as they started in, okay, Danny Glover's in Vietnam. Okay, cool. He's an ex didn't really say ex military, whatever, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
Didn't say what branch. And then they bring in Riggs and they're like, oh, he was in Vietnam too. And then they kept saying the war, the war. They said it like 12 times. Like, I'm like,
Right.
so why is this one guy really old, right? But Riggs wasn't. You know
Well,
what I
what's
mean?
crazy too,
I
right?
mean, I guess
Is
Danny Glover could have been older when he was in the war, but so like
okay, maybe.
once again, so assuming based on, let's say, 1969, right? So you're
Mhm.
assuming that Riggs was 18 when he joined the military, right?
Right.
And it's 1984, right? And
Right.
if he was in that, if he joined right in 1969 and was only in there when he was 18, right, that would put him at almost 40 years old. So that means
Well,
that
it's funny.
Danny Glover in 1965, right, would have had to have
Right.
already been 10 more years older. So he was almost 30 when he was in the war. You know what I
Right.
mean? Which seems okay, but it didn't make sense in the story. Like, it's just like, oh, well, we're both from the war. Like, okay. But
Well, what's
yeah,
weird too is like, so the start of the movie is Danny Glover turning 50,
yeah,
but
that's
when
what I'm
they're
saying. So
doing
he was
the
supposedly 50 in this movie.
right,
And
but
if you
then
count
during the
backwards, you know what I mean?
right, but then during the scene where they were like shooting their guns at the range,
Yeah.
there's a line where it's presumed that Mel Gibson is 15 years younger than him.
Right. So that would mean he would have to have been in Vietnam when he was 16 years old.
Right. As a
So
special forces sniper.
right out of high, right. He was like, didn't even finish ninth, 10th, 11th grade or whatever. They're like, come on in.
Right.
We can tell you're crazy. So we're going to put you like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, All right, like
Whoa.
whatever. It's a movie, I guess, whatever. But like,
Yeah.
come on, if you're gonna throw out numbers, make them make sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like use a little math. Like nobody in the production went like, these numbers don't add up. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
I think what was crazy because like, and to go back, like, yeah, rewatching this time, did not care for it as much as I remember.
Yeah.
But the thing too is like Danny Glover didn't look that much older than Mel
Well, that's
Gibson.
right. That's the other thing too. He's like, and like the police retire at 50, I guess, because he would have had a military pension, I guess, maybe. Like, you know
I
what I
don't
mean?
think so.
But like,
I don't
that's the
think a
thing.
military pension kicks until 55.
But like, if he was going to retire from the police force,
Right.
he couldn't have early because he wouldn't have been able to be in a police officer long enough because he was supposedly in the military. Like,
Yeah. Wow.
like this
You're
whole
right.
thing falls apart because of the main plot of the story. Like, you know,
He wasn't too old for this.
and why did I listen? Why did I pay attention to all that stuff? Because the rest of the movie bored the fuck out of me. Like, you know,
Oh,
I
this
did
movie
not
was so
care about
boring.
one thing that was happening in this movie. I didn't care about any of it. Like nothing. Like I was like, this is the dumbest movie. Like it was really bad. Like it bored me to death. I kept check. I'm like, is this over yet? Like I don't, you know, this. I would not call this an action movie. Like, is it?
There was three. I have three main complaints about this movie. One of them being, I did not remember.
I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah, I did not remember how long. Like this movie, like felt like it was 4 hours long. Like I was sitting there at one point,
yeah.
And then like the end is kind of anticlimactic and weird.
The end. Well, I mean, the end is a perfect culmination of the way everything else is set up in this movie, right? Because we're kind of jumping around here, right? So the bad guy was awful. They were the dumbest bad guys I've ever seen in my life. At one point, whenever I don't even know what the bad guy's name was because they were so forgettable. Like
I called them Gary Bussey and the guy Gary Bussey answered to.
Yeah, the general. He was General Smith or whatever. Like they're in that. It was that a roller ring or whatever they were at.
It was like a nightclub thing or something he had.
And like they brings that guy in, and that guy's like, "Oh, you have these mercenaries," and then the main bad guy goes like, "Oh yeah, but they're completely loyal to me." No, that's the very definition of a mercenary. Is that they're loyal to money? Like, you know what I mean? Like. But they were just so boring.
Well, like, I don't think they were really mercenaries because I think they said that general, he like those are all guys that work for him.
Well, no, because like they talked about him being part of that company, like whenever he captures, what's his name? Because he's like, oh, I knew you're General whatever, and you were in charge of this black company, whatever. Like, so they were all part of this mercenary company. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
It don't make sense. It not like it was long and like they say all these arbitrary names and places and events that don't really matter. So like they're throwing all this information at you, and then you're like things happen. You're like I don't know.
I don't know. It's like they were trying to weave this mystery into it, but like everything just coincidentally happened at the right moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when they go to like check out. Okay, so the movie starts. This girl, very first couple scenes, this girl like is doing drugs and throws herself out a balcony, right?
Right.
And then the cops are investigating, and Danny Glover comes, and it's his old Vietnam buddy, his daughter, right? And for some reason that morning, that guy called him. But he didn't get the message or something, right? You know, and conveniently, you know. So there's this like prostitute that that told the cops that she saw what happened, and like that's kind of a side thread, right? And I said that to say this: when they go to question this prostitute, just as they're there, the house blows up. Like it wasn't like they went to investigate, but the house was already blown up. It happened exactly when they walked up to it. Like I'm like, come on, you know what I mean? It's just like that kind of stuff bothered me so much about this movie because everything was so choreographed and it just felt plastic. It was just nonsense, you know.
Well, it's like even Riggs gets captured because he's like sniping from a distance. You watch everybody drive up to the area and land. But you don't see anybody like slip through the side.
Yeah, he couldn't see that general, you know.
Yeah,
and like what was Danny Glover's plan with that grenade. Like that didn't
I
make any sense.
and
I'm gonna blow all you up, even though you're 50 feet away from me. Like does he
then
not
like
know? I thought he was in Vietnam. Doesn't he know how grenades work? Like
no, and
that's
then when
not
he
gonna kill
throws it,
everybody. Like
and then when he
it's
throws
not
it, he
like
like
yeah.
it was like
And
like his lip like kind of like
yeah,
just it like
what
maybe like 5 feet in front of him.
did he think they were all just gonna gather around him? Like what? That was a bad plan, you know.
Yeah,
But somehow it was Riggs's plan. He's like, "We're gonna do it my way," and the ominous red Christmas light while they're sitting by the standing by the
because it's
Christmas
gonna
tree.
be bloody.
And speaking of that, is this considered a Christmas movie like Die Hard? Because it
No, because
100%
I would
happened at
say
Christmas.
well, no, because what's weird is right is like in the beginning. So let's take it back to the beginning, right? So you see that girl, she killed herself, boom. Then we're introduced to
Danny Glover's
Riggs and
character,
Danny
Riggs.
Glover,
Yeah.
Murdoch. So we're introduced to Murdoch, Danny
Hey,
Glover's character.
it's your birthday. What are we gonna do? What should we do?
You know what?
What do you typically do if it's your father's 50th birthday?
Oh,
What would you say you do?
Let's go out to dinner.
Maybe a
Or,
surprise
hey,
party.
Surprise party.
Or would you get a birthday cake and bring the whole family into the bathroom while he's taking a bath, laying naked in a bathtub with barely any bubbles, and sing happy birthday to him? Is that what you
kiss him?
And kiss him.
Yeah. Everybody kisses him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought somebody was going to jump in the tub with him. Like it was weird.
At one point he pretended like he was going to drag his son up. That whole that's the way you're introduced to him, naked in a tub, and his whole family comes to sing happy birthday, give him cake, and kiss him while he's laying naked in the tub. And at one point, at no point he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm naked, guys," or anything. It's just like, "Oh, hey,
I'm naked."
Oh, and they're all like, "Ah, yeah."
And for some reason, he had a beard, but then got rid of it, which
because it made him look old,
which doesn't make any sense. I don't,
Well, that was the thing. Like, it makes you look old. He's like, I gotta shave it. Makes it look old, but like that doesn't go anywhere because then he just keeps saying he's too old for it. So
I'm too old for this.
All right,
okay,
okay. But the whole time of this movie being a Christmas movie, anyway, back to this. When he comes downstairs, I thought at first like it was Christmas just happened,
right,
because his daughter's like, look at my New Year's.
Yeah, this
outfit.
is my New Year's outfit, right? And why was she just wearing her New Year's outfit around the house? Like I don't. At any rate, that's
before Christmas.
That's the least of this guy's problems.
Yeah.
Like,
And then the next scene is the next part of the movie is you watch Mel Gibson's character, Murdoch, or Riggs, excuse me, like he's doing a drug bust at a Christmas tree selling place. And he's like, I want a Christmas tree. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Why are they still selling Christmas trees after Christmas? Because New Year's is coming up.
Yeah.
And then you don't find out that it's Christmas Day until the end of the movie.
Right, because that one guy says it's Christmas or whatever, like the bad guy. He says,
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, I thought we were like going towards New Year's here.
Yeah. I thought like maybe Christmas was over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, like the whole timeline to this movie didn't make sense. And like,
and the other thing that doesn't make any sense, the whole case of this girl, because like she obviously threw herself off the thing, and they're like, oh, she was on drugs. Oh, but it was a murder because somebody laced the drugs. Like, I'm like,
with Drano,
they're like she would have been dead anyway. You don't know that. You can't like that's, you know what I mean? Like it was there was a little bit of Drano in this cocaine she snorted, and they're like, oh, she would have been dead anyway, so it's a murder. I mean,
what's weird about that is Drano is acid.
Yeah.
So like if you snorted acid, there's no like, oh, well, there's like 10, 15 minutes where you're fine.
They were 100% sure she would have been dead.
Well, they said it'd be a few minutes, but I feel like if you snorted Drano away, like it's just you're all fucked. Like it's just all like.
Well, I mean, if it was cut though, it wasn't like pure Drano.
But it's an acid though.
Yeah, I know.
Like as soon as it mixed with the water,
it's fine. Don't
your nose.
It's fine. No, it's a murder. It's fine.
Okay. Oh well, I mean, that way would you say this the plot of this case is my second biggest complaint about this movie? Is like nothing they did is I didn't give a fuck about any of it.
Yeah,
I didn't give a fuck about this case. I didn't care about any of the people. I didn't care about Murdoch and Riggs. Mm-hmm. I didn't care about the end of the case because like none of these characters were like, I'm rooting for you. I was just like, all right.
Yeah, can this be over? Yeah, it's weird. It's real weird, right? Like
they try to make you feel bad for like, because Mel Gibson's character is supposed to be as tragic, like his wife died in a car accident and now he's kind of suicidal and like he has a death wish, so like he can't kill himself,
Yeah.
But he puts himself in these positions. But like,
Yeah,
all right,
that's you know
but
what that's
like,
what it was. Her grave, because her grave said 1984, and they said
yeah,
she just recently died. So it
right,
was either 1984 or 1985 is when this movie was supposedly taking place. You know what I
right.
mean? So that's why I said that's why that girl would have had to been like graduated and when she was 23 years old or whatever.
But like it, so like, but like with him, like it wasn't ever like, oh, I feel bad for him because like every scene it was just him like doing something crazy to try to die and like
Yeah.
it was weird going like all that
Oh,
weird
because
stuff. And
the
I'm like, all
stupid like
right,
faces and noises he made. It
yeah,
was just that's what made I just hated his character. I hated it. Like he was the worst character in the movie. Like
yeah,
he was supposed to just, oh, I'm crazy, but he just acted like an idiot. Like I'm like, this guy's dumb. Like, why is he even this movie? I don't get it.
right. And like it's crazy. Like and then he's like, I don't want to hurt anybody else, but yet everything he does blatantly put people
Yeah,
in like
yeah.
harm's way. And I'm like, I none of this makes
Right.
sense. And then
Well,
like
I like how so especially like he's like he meets up with Riggs to be his new part, or he meets up with
Murdoch,
Murdoch to be his new partner, right? And then they go to that like guy's gonna jump off the roof, and he's like, "You go talk to him." It's like, what do you like? Didn't they just tell you that he's supposed to be
right?
like not a good police officer? Like,
Well,
you
like
know, and he's like,
the
all right, just go talk to him. It'll be fine. This guy's gonna commit suicide. So you go, and he's like, are you trained in it? No, okay, that's fine. Go
he's
ahead.
like, but I've talked to people before.
Yeah,
I've talked to
like,
people
all
like
right,
before.
yeah, okay, go
Well,
ahead.
it's all weird because there's this little side plot that doesn't go anywhere in the movie where there's a psychologist at the police force and she's
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
I know he's suicidal, he's psychotic, whatever. And like she's telling him like he shouldn't be out in the field. And the guy's like, he gets results. And if he kills
Yeah, they
himself, I
tells
know I'm
like
wrong.
the captain, and I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure like if the police psychologist tells you that, you have to pull them into desk duty and
right,
put them on observation. Like, you know, no, he's like,
right.
it's fine.
Well,
It's
then like
fine.
there's even part where like Murdoch or at one point Danny Glover like calls her on the freeway to ask her
Yeah,
what he's
yeah,
like, but then that goes nowhere. That
yeah,
whole thing goes nowhere from that point.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
like they kind of become friends, and he comes out like he invites him over to dinner, and then like they kidnap his daughter because they know too much. They kidnap Danny Glover's daughter because they know too much, and he's like, "We're gonna have to do this my way, the bloody way, because I have special forces, and I'm one of 10 people that can shoot 1,000 yards." And he's like, "Okay," and then like it's fine, everything's
Yeah,
fine,
everything's fine.
everything's fine.
Speaking of his daughter, like she's like hot for Mel Gibson, and
Yeah,
like how old is his daughter? Because I like you. Is she in high school? Is she not? Like it doesn't really say how old she is, but I'm pretty sure in future movies they like get together, right?
well, yeah, because if I'm trying to remember, isn't it in one of them? Because so there's been 4 lethal weapons, right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure on one of them she has a drug problem. You have to
yeah,
help her with.
yeah.
And then I think in the third one they get together.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's real weird because at that by that point he's probably like 45, 49, something like that, you know,
Yeah.
like and once again, you know, they made multiple iterations of this, but Danny Glover's supposed to be retiring. I'm like,
And
this
guess
whole
what?
thing is just
Every movie, too old for this.
I'm too old for this shit.
Every movie, too old for this shit.
Mel
Every
Gibson's
movie.
like, I'm crazy. I'm crazy.
Every movie.
Every
And like
movie.
no matter how much better, because which is weird too, because I think in the second one, or no, is it the second one she has a drug problem? They kind of get together temporarily, but then the third one, Mel Gibson like marries that girl who has that kid, like that prostitute or something.
I don't remember,
Yeah.
honestly.
But yeah, he's still
I'm
crazy.
not
Even
gonna
though
go watch him. Like
every movie, his life gets better and better, but he's like, I'm crazy. Ah, like it's bad. But yeah, that was my
well,
second.
and that girl, so the guy that's so the girl that jumped, the whole case is about her
Right.
father. I guess he was what, an old buddy of Mel or of Danny Glover's
Their
in the
army,
war.
army,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, in the war. And the guy's like he Mel or Danny Glover's like, oh, your daughter killed herself, and he's like, yeah, and he Danny Glover tells this guy, Mr. Hackerton or whatever his name is, that, oh, she was murdered, and the guy's like, just kill him, you owe it to me. It's like he's a police officer. Like it doesn't matter. Like, you know, that whole thing was stupid too. Like, oh, you owe me for just do whatever it takes and kill them all. It's like, all right, what are you talking about?
Well,
Like,
do you know the actor who played his army buddy?
I've seen him before. I
That's a
just don't know.
Mr. Tom Atkins.
Okay,
That's a
okay,
Pittsburgh
yeah,
boy.
yeah, yep.
He was his career, like early in his career, he was in The Fog,
Hmm.
and Halloween 3.
Well, he should have stuck to those movies because this one was bad. So.
I saw him live do a Christmas Carol the one year at the
Really?
Benedum. Wasn't good.
Was as good as this performance?
It was better than this
Yeah,
movie,
right.
but I don't know if I'd call it good.
Who was the
Not
main bad guy? Who played him? Because I've seen him before too.
like Gary Busey's boss.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have no clue.
I've seen him in.
It's weird because they only show you his face like 3 times in the movie. It's always like weird angles of his face,
Yeah.
like he's like some big international spy. And
Was he
then
the
literally,
guy from? You ever see The Goods?
yeah.
Was
Oh,
he the?
maybe,
He's like, man tells me wear my boner pants. I wear my boner pants. Was he that guy? Like,
maybe.
let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
I
But yeah, it was.
him
It
being the
was not.
boss was pointless though, because
And
like
then he like he's like grabs Gary Busey's hand and he's like, oh, I'm gonna whatever, you know what I mean? Like he burns his arm with the lighter or
to
something.
show he's loyal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Even
know like his like death was weird because like so like basically, they're trying to solve this case, and then this mercenary group who you find out is smuggling heroin into the country. They kidnapped Dan Glover's daughter to try to get Danny Glover to turn himself into them to see what he knows. And they have this big plan in the desert that backfires, and they end up catching Riggs and Murdoch. And so they have him hostage, and then they manage to escape. Mel Gibson runs after Gary Busey, and Danny Glover's like, I can't let the general get away. And basically, they're like trying to drive away in their getaway car. And Danny Glover has this thing where he can, if he shakes his head, and he can do a quick fire headshot, kills the driver. The general wrecks the car, somehow gets pinned under his seat, and he had all these grenades in the car, and the car's
yeah,
on
for some
somehow
reason.
catches on fire because he gets hit by a bus, and then it blows up, and then the general's gone, and then your villain, the villain you're left with is Gary Busey, which whatever. And then like, how many times do they leave in this movie and realize, oh, the bad guys know where Danny Glover lives?
Yeah.
They're at my house. And somehow,
and that let's get into the ending because it was possibly one of the worst movies endings I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, Gary Busey gets away.
Yep.
And Riggs realizes, or Murdoch realizes that, hey, he knows where my house is. So there's a car scene where they cut back and forth, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Who's going to get there? So Gary Busey busts in the house. There's nobody in the house, and there's a note on the Christmas tree that says, "Bad guys, something. There's nobody home,
but
we
us
got
cops
you,"
or something.
Oh yeah, but cops or whatever. So at that point, they proceed to drive a car through the front of his house for no apparent reason. Literally no reason to drive that car through the front of the house.
There's no driver. They rig a car.
No reason. He's in the house alone. The families aren't there. They have the house surrounded by police officers, and they still drive a car through the front of the house.
Yeah. They take a nightstick,
whatever,
and jam it the gas, so it drives through the house, scares Gary Busey, and then when he goes to look in the car, Mel Gibson's like standing around the corner with the guns, like, come on outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Into the most ridiculous 10 minutes because Murdoch is like the senior officer there, so he's in charge. There's all these cops around, and he's like, he killed one of our own. We're going to teach him a lesson. So they just take Gary Busey's jacket off. Mel Gibson takes his shirt off, and then they have a karate fight.
Well, it's because in the beginning, it's because I know exactly why they did it, or they foreshadowed it, because when they first meet Riggs and Murdoch, he's like, "Oh, you're into those guns and that jujitsu or something, taekwondo. You're into that stuff." I'm like, what does that mean? That stuff, for one, like, you're a police officer. Are you supposed to be trained in hand to hand? And you were in the military,
special forces.
Like, well, you're into that karate stuff. Like, okay, but so at the end they had to show all his jujitsu stuff off, which I don't know if Mel Gibson knows jujitsu for real, but based on this, he doesn't. So
the only move I saw that I was like, oh wow, that's the actual martial arts move, was a triangle choke. That's that move. He gets him
Was
in
it
at the
even
end.
him though? Was it, or I don't even know
I
if that
thought
was
that
him
was
doing
him
it.
because
Yeah,
the
yeah.
parts where you can tell it's like it almost looks like a slap fight
So
because
here's
they're
the
like
thing, right?
slapping each other's
So they
hands.
do this build up where they're going to fight each other, and there's 100 cops standing around. At no point in time is Riggs in any danger because there's 100 cops
Mhm.
standing around. So they made this thing up like, oh, he's going to drown him in mud puddle. No, he's not. He's not going to do that because there's 100 cops standing
Well, there's
around.
even that line
Like,
where Murdoch goes, "Hey, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to intervene, Riggs." And Riggs
yeah.
like, "No," and
No,
then
no,
like
where he's
turns
mine,
it
even though
over.
there's 100 people around
Yeah,
here. Like, it was so stupid. Like, it was the dumbest bad guy showdown I've ever seen in my
yeah.
life.
Because then like he's like goes
So
to like
dumb.
they're like break his neck in front of all these cops. They're like break his neck, and all these cops are like yeah, break his neck. And then he's
Get
like
him.
he's not worth it. And then they
Like,
arrest Gary Busey. And
yeah,
that's
he's
and
not
then like
worth it. Like,
then somehow while they're trying to arrest Gary Busey and like Murdoch and Riggs are hugging, and they're trying to arrest Gary Busey. Gary Busey somehow overpowers with one arm one of the cops, grabs his gun.
but that's why
To
they
shoot.
handcuff people face down on the ground.
Yeah,
You don't stand them up and try. Like, no, he was already on the ground. That would
yeah,
never
no.
happen. Like,
They're gonna let stay down. And like Riggs and Murdoch, as they're hugging, realize what's happening. And Riggs grabs Murdoch's gun out of his pants. Murdoch grabs Riggs's gun out of the back of his pants, and they both shoot Gary Busey 100 times.
we killed the guy as friends. Oh,
Yeah,
God,
and
I
then
hate it. You know what? I changed my mind. I hate this movie now. I hate it. Thinking back, I hate it. I hate this movie. Like, this is right up there with John Carpenter's Vampires. I hate this movie so much.
whoa,
Are you kidding me? You could put James Wood in this movie, and it would be
it's the same movie.
It's the same movie.
It's the same movie.
I
Yeah,
hate this movie so much.
it's crazy because like I said, and like I remember like we never thought it was like great. Like it was like I remember in high school, like my friends and I, this is a cheesy action movie. We'd watch, we'd laugh, we'd repeat the
Right.
lines.
Yeah.
And then like I said, it's been like 10, 15 years. And when I sat down to watch this today, and like every minute I'm like, this is bad.
Speaking of lines, let's get some of these winner lines some of these quippy, quirky lines they had in this movie.
All right.
So a lot of them that I caught were happening while they were being tortured and interrogated by this black company mercenary group or whatever, right?
Right.
So Danny Glover's tied to a chair and getting punched in the face repeatedly, and the guy's like, and first off, the whole like, what do you know about the shipment? They know these two guys knew something about the shipment. Potentially, they told, well, just change the shipment. Like, just change it. Like, just call and be like, hey, stop the shipment coming to a different port. Like, it's literally that simple. They're like, no, we're gonna find out what these guys know, and then if they told 20 people, we're gonna kill 20 people. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Anyhow, Danny Glover's getting punched in the face, and he's like, what do you know? Gary Busey's like, what do you know about the shipment? And you know what Danny Glover says? Go spit. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He's like, go spit.
He says it like 4 or 5 times.
Okay. So they Riggs gets free from being electrocuted by a sponge or whatever was happening at all. And he comes in and they kills a bunch of people, and they're getting ready to go. You know what he says? Did you catch what he said?
No.
He said, let's make like a shepherd and get the
Oh,
fuck
yeah,
out of
that's
here.
right.
I was like,
That's
fuck
right.
you. Like,
oh my god, he did that. Because I remember when he said that, I was like, what? And then Dave Glover goes, I told you to be real thin. He goes, real thin indeed. And then I was like,
he's like anorexic.
yeah, and I was like,
Am I right?
There were so many bad lines right
It was
there.
so dumb. I've moved from dislike to hate on this movie. Now they're like recapping it in my head, because quite honestly, while I was watching it, I was zoned out half the time because it was boring. Now that I think back, I'm like, man, do I hate these? I hate both of these characters. I hate everything about them. I hate the plot line. I hate,
It was crazy. I was real excited to rewatch this because I was like, oh man, I remember in high school, like I said, we'd watch this, whatever. And then like I'm watching it today and I'm like, what is this piece of shit?
And even the action was kind of crappy. Like, it wasn't, this wasn't like a typical action movie. I mean, there was action, but it wasn't action as in the verb of things happening or people doing stuff. But like, I wouldn't categorize this as a very, very good action movie. It's like a buddy, not even, it's not a comedy, that's for sure. And it's not even like it's bad in the way that, like, we talk about Commando, where it was like there's some cheesy stuff, but they pull it off well. This is just bad because it's like they took it themselves way too serious. Like, they tried to interject this nonsense into the movie about like Riggs's wife and like the family, and I'm close to retirement, and like all this like real life stuff, and then they do this nonsense that completely just takes you out of it. At least in Commando, because we just reviewed that, or just talked about that, I should say. Like, there was like a little bit of that, but most of it was just phone booths getting ripped out of the ground and stuff blowing up. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like, they tried to like mix and match this other they wanted you to care about these characters, and I absolutely did not. I would have been fine like if literally everybody in this movie got killed. I'd have been like, okay, great,
been better ending.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like weird because like they said they tried to make Riggs this tragic character, but like no one cared. Like he just acted like if he was like a man on like it was a death wish, and like he was putting himself in positions, like, okay, fine, all right, cool.
Well,
but like the problem, they went over the top with it, like, and not even like it was cheesy, but like they just went like it was like Mel Gibson, like they told him what the character needed to be, and Mel Gibson's like, oh, I know what to study. And like, okay, and then he watched some Looney Tunes episodes. He's like,
right, exactly, yeah.
It
was so over the top because I could appreciate it more if you're like, okay, this guy has a death wish. He's sad, he's suicidal, but like when he went in situations, he was not an idiot about it. Like, because that's the thing. He was just being an idiot about stuff. He's making all these noises all the time, like shaking his head around. I'm like,
and like his hair.
Does he have some kind of like mental disorder that we should be aware of? You know what I mean? It's like, it's so weird.
Well, he
He's
said
so
like
dumb.
he was psychotic, but like even that didn't make sense to like what he was actually doing, because like he had that, like Mel Gibson had the weirdest looking mullet I ever seen this, but like
it was very fluffy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he would go crazy, they would like almost make it stand out on end.
Yeah.
And he's just like, like a rabid dog. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Or like at the end when he's fighting that guy, like he's doing that jujitsu, he was making some weird. He was like,
yeah.
Like, what are you doing? What nobody makes those noises. What are you doing with your life here?
Yeah.
Riggs,
and like what's crazy too, they say like at one point, like Murdoch and him are like having a fight, and he's like, why don't you just kill yourself now, whatever. And like Mel Gibson's like, every day I want to eat the bullet, but you know what stops me is doing my job and stopping these people and helping people. But yet I'm like,
but he doesn't do that.
Like,
yeah, like
because you go in these situations and you act like an ass clown.
Yeah. Like he was just an idiot in this movie.
It was so crazy.
And Danny Glover is like supposedly the straight man. Like you have the kind of the off the wall guy, and then you have the guy that supposedly plays it straight, but he just comes off as an incompetent person. Like,
yeah,
and like the thing was, I maybe they were going for, okay, he's retiring and he doesn't really care, but
they never bring up retirement.
Well, I thought he was retiring because he was 50 or something. They just said he was 50.
They just say you're 50. Like, they never bring up retirement at all.
Because wasn't there some movie
he
where
retires
like, I'm 2 days from retirement or
something?
That's the
second one.
Oh, okay. I must have got that quote unquote plot line confused.
Yeah, because they don't talk about retirement in this movie at all. He just says he's too old. They're like, because they when he's doing this case, they're like, we're giving you this partner, Riggs, we need someone to keep him in line, and you've been here long enough,
which makes
keep him in line.
Which makes the whole thing with like his daughter and the timeline even more weird, because that means it's another 5 years, let's say, in the second one where he's getting ready to retire, which would put Riggs at about almost 50 himself. Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, go ahead and have sex with my daughter. It's fine." Like, well, I'm too old for this shit.
Well, there was a lot of weird scenes in this movie.
Yeah,
like the bathtub scene, right? And then there's the first scene where Murdoch invites Riggs over, like, oh, you should come eat dinner here.
Yeah.
And like his daughter is like
eye humping him across the table.
Yeah, like Riggs is like looking at her and smiling and like winking and stuff. And like Diggler's just like, just go get the dessert. Do you like tarts?
And her mom's like, hey, am I right?
Yeah.
Hey, this guy, I bet this guy's crazy. That'd be all right for my daughter. Like, it's so weird.
I'm like, what's happening here?
Yeah,
and then like there's this whole running gag about how he's convinced, or Danny Glover's convinced that Mel Gibson's crazy because he thinks he likes his wife's cooking, but like Mel Gibson keeps saying, "I don't like it." He's like, "Are you sure? You're crazy." And it's like,
Yeah, he keeps saying,
what?
yeah, it's like, why you keep talking about your wife's cooking for one, and two, I'm pretty sure he said he doesn't like it.
Yeah, like, what are you talking about?
Like,
You liked it because you're crazy.
You
And
liked
I'm like,
it. I heard you were crazy. I heard you were suicidal. Eat my wife's cooking. Like,
like,
am I right?
what, what the hell is happening here?
And
Yeah,
and then the whole like they were like this weird like working on the boat thing, and then they're drinking, and Danny Glover's like, "Yeah, go ahead and drive home. It's fine. You're a police officer. I'm a police officer. Drive drunk. Everything will be okay. No big deal." Yeah.
Well, I think that was their only beer, right?
I don't know. They weren't
because they were drinking coffee. He
I don't
drink coffee at dinner.
Well, no, because he asked him like, "What do you want to drink?" And I thought he named like some alcoholic beverages or something.
Yeah, but he's like, "Oh, I got Canadian Dry, which is a ginger ale, and coffee." And so they drank coffee with their dinner.
By honest, I wasn't listening, so I mean, I kind of couldn't tell you.
I kept like catching these weird things. I'm like, because one.
Well, that's how I was. Like I said, I picked up on this weird stuff because the rest of the movie was stupid. Like, I was
boring.
I was literally, I don't even care. I did not care one bit about what was happening in this movie. And somehow the bad guys can fly a helicopter literally anywhere they want. There's no air traffic control in Los Angeles, apparently. They're just like, hey, you're at this golf resort business or whatever. We're going to fly a helicopter up here and shoot you. Like, nobody will notice. Nobody will notice. It's fine. Like,
well, it was just weird too. So like when they, at one point, like they fly their helicopter to shoot that guy, right? And then Mel Gibson proceeds, we watch him empty 2 clips. Shooting at this helicopter, which isn't doing anything. He empties 1 clip, and then there's a scene. You watch him take that clip out, put another clip in, to then empty that clip at the same helicopter, and nothing happens.
Yeah. And he's supposedly this crack shot.
Yeah.
Like,
he can shoot, what did he say, over 1,000, was it 1,000 yards? He's one of 10 people that can shoot over 1,000 yards or something.
It was nonsense too.
Yeah, it was.
Like, I got my Predator cannon and I can shoot 1,000 yards with it. Like,
yeah. Well, then I was reading this when I was looking up, he says I'm too old for this shit 4 times in the movie.
Yeah.
But he says I'm too old for this.
A couple more
another
times. Yeah.
5 or 10?
Yeah.
Every
other scene he's saying he's too old. It's like, we get it. Okay.
Yeah,
we get
you're
it.
old. You're too old.
You're old. Yeah.
But meanwhile, you guys don't look that much different.
Yeah. Because they're not in reality.
No. No, that's what was crazy too. Like it was weird. They're having him play this older guy, but like he wasn't that much older. Like it did not come off
like that. It did not come off like they were like there's this, because that was what I thought too. I was like, okay, well, Riggs is like this younger, like whatever, you know what I mean? So he's like this kind of rookie, whatever guy, but like he wasn't. It wasn't like, I don't, it doesn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense to me.
And then while I'm watching this, I have a realization.
Okay.
Have you ever seen a little film I like to call Predator 2?
I have. With Daniel Glover. Yep.
Is Danny Glover not playing the same character in Lethal Weapon that he's playing in Predator 2?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know that many other movies that Danny Glover's in, and he seemed like the same person in every movie I've seen him in.
You know what?
I mean, what else has he been in?
He was in the Saw, the original Saw.
He was a cop in that, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm too old for this Saw. Like,
I'm gonna look up his filmography because
I'm too old for this Predator.
Because that is a.
You're right, though. You're right. Now thinking back, he's very character. He basically has no depth in his character. He's always the same kind of, not disgruntled cop, but like kind of I've been doing this shit for a long time, cop. Hey, Predator, I'm too old for this. Like,
I'm trying to. Oh, wow. Do you know what his first acting role was?
A police officer.
No, he played a TV reporter on the hit TV show BJ and the Bear.
Never saw that show.
It was called BJ and the Bear, but it was about a guy and a monkey.
That was a TV show?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, it was in the 70s. Yeah. Let's see, he played an inmate and escape. He has a bunch of TV roles starting out.
Should probably stick to those.
And then he had some like film stuff, but none of the no, there's not movies I recognize.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just Lethal Weapons and Predator, and then
Well, he
that
was in
was
the Color Purple, which was a pretty popular movie,
yeah.
but I don't know what he played there.
He was a police officer.
Let's see. There's
He's like,
Lethal
Oprah
Weapon,
Winfrey, I'm too old for this shit.
a bunch of other TV shows. Oh, that's right. He was in the Lonesome Dove TV series. Some other TV shows, Lethal Weapon 2. Oh, no wonder I think he. So Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 both came out before Predator.
Yeah, yeah.
Predator 2. Lethal Weapon 2 was 87. Weapon 2 was 89. Predator 2 was 90.
Yeah.
So that's why maybe he's just like, hey, as soon as you done Lethal Weapon 2, we're Predator 2. And he's like,
yeah.
Can I just be the same
he probably
character?
like told the director, like, I'm too old for this shit. Like,
and they're like, all right. Well, that's the thing. Like, he was like this old cop in Predator 2. And like, he's like,
yeah, you're right. You're right. He was exactly the same character. His name was his name Murdoch in that?
I don't think so. No, it was Lieutenant Mike Harrigan. Then he was in a bunch of other little TV series.
What if the Predator would have pulled his mask off and it would have been Riggs?
Because he's crazy? He likes his wife's cooking.
I love your wife's cooking.
I knew you were crazy. You like my wife's cooking. You know what's weird? I'm like looking at filmography and like
that's the list.
There's a bunch of stuff, but
none of it's very good.
Not a lot that I've seen. And he's still in stuff today. Which is crazy. Oh no, actually, he only had 2 roles in 2022.
Yeah.
Neither that I've heard of.
Well, he got to be like 70 probably, right?
What is he? Does IMDb say how old he is? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like you're right. He would
got to
be up there
because he was probably 45 in this. Well, he's 50 in this movie, but he's probably he's probably around 45 or so. So he got to be close to 70 or so, maybe even older.
Wow, nice. You know what? There's a talk of them doing a Lethal Weapon 5.
I hope so. Mm-hmm. Is Danny Glover going to be in it? Is there going to be?
I don't know because I don't know if it got shelved because of all the issues with the Lethal Weapon TV show they just did.
I didn't watch that either. I've heard of it. Yeah, I heard there was a TV show. What was the issues with it? Just a bunch of
the guy playing something happened with the guy playing Riggs, and like they tried to replace him.
He was crazy, probably. Yeah.
Well, Riggs is crazy. You
think that's just like Mel Gibson's real life attitude, like how he is.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about Mel Gibson, we all know what happened to Mel Gibson.
Some situation he got himself into a while back.
You know what's crazy about that is like, besides this, like Mel Gibson's actually pretty good in some movies.
Yeah. I mean, he's had some excellent movies, but this was not one of them. And the weird thing is, all the acting was really good in this movie. It was just the storyline and the characters and
was all the acting really good?
Well, I mean, as far as like delivery and like they weren't terrible at like saying their lines. You know what I mean? Like
except for when Riggs is acting crazy.
They were acting well. It was just they were choosing the wrong way to act.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like if this had been like, I don't know, Willy Wonka, then Riggs would have been a perfect character. You know what I mean?
Well, like it was just weird because like Riggs was always doing that. And then why was there so many close-up shots of Danny Glover sweating in this movie?
Hey, he's too old. Did you notice that? Yeah, there was a lot of sweating,
like,
in this movie.
It's weird. Every time they cut to him, he was just sweating profusely. I'm like, why are we?
Like, is that necessary?
Like, all right.
And like, how good police officers are they? So they go to that house with that drug dealer, and he tries to shoot him with a shotgun, and they handcuff those two. I guess they were like prostitutes or whatever to the tree outside, and then like they shoot him in the leg, and he's like, "Oh, I shot." Danny Glover's like, "See, I shot him in the leg. I have to kill him or whatever." And then he stands up, and then he has a gun and Riggs shoots him in the chest like 7 times. He falls in a pool and then they still try to save. He just got shot in the chest 7 times. You don't need to dive into the pool and save him. Like,
what's weird is Danny Glover shoots in the leg, right? And then they're just standing there. He's not like checking him for a weapon. He's just standing there going, I'm about to stand over here and be happy. You go ahead and cuff him and read him his rights. And like they're like talking for 5 minutes. It's like, why wouldn't you, as soon as the guy was down, be like, oh, let me get you in cuffs?
But like, here's the thing. So like that whole situation, then they're looking at the shooting range and Danny Glover's like, well, that was the end of the case. That guy must have gave her drugs and he tried to kill us with a shotgun. We're not going to get any other proof or anything. That's the end of it. Like,
well, no,
and then somehow they just, once again, they just mysteriously figure out that prostitute was the one who did it.
The way that happened was, right, they're at dinner and they're Danny Glover showing him his boat that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like, Danny Glover's like, oh, that was it. This is what happened, whatever. And Riggs like, I don't think that's it. He's like, well, you're crazy. You like my wife's cooking. And he's like, what? No, I don't think that's it. He's like, I want to go home. So then the next morning they meet at the shooting range and Riggs like, I've been thinking all night because I don't sleep. And it's like, all right.
Okay.
And he's like, what if that prostitute Dixie who reported to the police was crime? And like came out this crazy.
That's what I mean.
Like,
it was
story.
just like this convenient like storyline that was exactly what happened. That didn't make any sense.
And they're like Dangler's like, that's real thin. But then everything that happens, he's like, it's thin. But yet it just keeps like that. He was right. Like, Riggs, like,
well, you know what? He came up
brain.
with that because somebody mailed him evidence. Remember, like that, and one of them was a pornography where that girl was in with a bunch of women. So since she's in a pornography with a bunch of women, then obviously she must have been in bed with another woman. And like at one point they're like, "Ooh, that's gross," and I'm like, "What do you?" Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Mel Gibson, that's gross. That's so but then again, with what happened to Mel Gibson in his real life,
yeah. It's just there was a lot of weird stuff in this movie, and I
like once again, like I said, it's weird. Like I had really fond memories of this movie, and like I never want to watch it again.
No, I will never watch it again.
Like I don't want to watch it. And then like I'm sitting here thinking like, eventually, will we do a Lethal Weapon 2 and 3?
No, we won't.
You don't think so?
I refuse. Unless it's by some kind of popular demand, people want to hear us talk about what I can only imagine are 2 more steaming piles of dog shit of movies.
Well, you heard everybody. It's by popular demand.
I won't watch this movie again, even if somebody's electrocuting me with a sponge. I won't.
What's weird?
I will not do it.
Oh my god. Well, let me ask you this, Jeff. Would you recommend this movie for people to watch?
No, nobody. I wouldn't recommend anybody watch this movie ever again. Leave it in the archives. I can't recommend it. There's not one redeeming thing in this movie that I can, because I mean, I think I can be kind of negative, but I think most of the time, like I try to find at least something in the movie that's okay. There was nothing in this movie that makes me want to watch it again, or that I can in good conscience recommend someone else watching it. I can't. If you have the choice between getting electrocuted by a sponge, watching this movie, or watching John Carpenter's Vampires, go with John Carpenter's Vampires. At least you'll get a laugh out of it. There was nothing funny or clever or good about this movie at all.
Oh my god. I would say if you're sitting here going, man, I watched this a long time ago, I like it, I'm gonna say this: stop, don't rewatch it. Let that memory live there. If you've never seen this before, I'd say stop, don't watch it. There's better things out there for you to watch, better cheesy action movies.
Literally put on a screen with black and white snow rather than watch this movie. You don't even have to like.
Or if you've never watched it, you're not into action movies, you're like, well, I'm curious about what they're talking about. Stay curious. Don't watch it.
Watch anything else except Lethal Weapon 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, because I can't find a good reason for it. But I'm like I was sitting there today. I'm like, I can't. Like normally I try to like be like, oh, you should. I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, we try to be as objective as we can in these movies. Yeah. Like I said, the acting was. The line delivery and stuff was good. They're good. They're professional actors. It wasn't like this movie was so bad because like somebody was like, I'm a crazy person. Like, like it wasn't. Right. Everything was delivered well. The lines were just bad, and the characters that they had to portray were bad. They portrayed them badly. So I can't even. That's not even a redeeming quality for me. Let me ask
this.
Yeah.
if you had to make this movie better,
Okay.
do you think it'd be a cast? Do you think different cast people make it better?
No, I think directors and writers ruined this movie.
Hmm.
That's what I
So,
think. That's what I think.
so I was thinking, what happens if you
Because
had?
honestly, Danny Glover is basically going to be the same person. I don't think you can do much with him. But Mel
Yeah,
Gibson has shown that he has a wide range of acting capabilities. You know,
right,
right? So I think that the story was dumb. Like the whole thing about the movie from start to finish was dumb and didn't make any sense. And it wasn't such a far-fetched plan that you're like, oh, okay, like this was just stupid. And they took themselves way too serious in this movie, and that was the problem. When they tried to interject comedy into it, it ended up falling flat because one, it wasn't funny, and
right.
two, they didn't earn comedy in this movie. They didn't earn the right to make quips about things. You know what I mean? Like in Commando, he's ripped a phone booth out of the ground. He's allowed to say, I eat Green Berets for lunch and I'm hungry. He ripped a phone booth out of the ground. Like in this, all you get is I'm too old for this or I'm crazy. That was their whole that was as deep as their characters went. Like
So you're saying if you took out Glover,
mm-hmm.
Gibson, replace him with, I don't know, Schwarzenegger and Stallone, saying this won't be a better movie.
The story is still just bad, and the bad guys are bad, and I don't. It would be a slightly better movie, but I don't think it would save it. I don't. I
Yeah.
can't. I can't in good conscience say that it would save this movie. It was bad.
Well, you know me, I have rules.
Mm-hmm.
I like rules.
Okay, here we go.
I have well, I wouldn't call this a rule. I have a theory,
Okay.
and I call it the Gary Busey effect.
Okay.
Okay.
And he was bad in this movie too. Like his
Well,
character was stupid.
yeah, that's part of the effect, right? It's a scientific theory I have cultivated and developed over many years. The
Okay.
way this theory goes, okay, if Gary Busey is a main character, the movie will be good. Don't know why. Silver Bullet, love that movie.
Point
Gary
Break.
Busey plays the uncle. Yeah, perfect. Gary Busey main character, right?
Well, he's one of,
Anytime,
yeah, I guess.
yeah, one of, but like not saying like the main, but like
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
main
yeah.
cast, right? Anytime you have Gary Busey as a side character, the movie's atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
It's terrible. That's the Gary Busey effect. If you put Gary Busey as a side character, like this movie did, it's just gonna be a bad movie. Is that Gary Busey's fault? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. But
So let me ask
fall
you
land.
this: if Gary Busey would have had a crocheted tank top, would it have been a better movie?
No, because he was still a side character. And like what's weird is he was a side character that they had kind of be the villain at the end, which didn't make sense. But I'm telling you, I want you to look up every Gary Busey
Well,
movie.
didn't they do the same thing in Commando, right? Because that was kind of the deal. The head guy was in Commando was the
Yeah,
guy that
but
wanted to overthrow the president, and the head guy in this was General Savage or whatever his
yeah,
name was.
but if you look where Commando did it different, right? That guy, the crochet vest guy, he had more
Barrett.
screen time than the main bad guy, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's true. So he ended
So,
up
yeah, he
being
was more of a main character,
yeah.
right? Whereas in
And the other
this,
guy was just more of a plot device than
yeah,
anything.
like I call it the Gary Busey effect because like if you just look,
That's
right?
interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, like if I look here, let's look, right? Some of Gary Busey's filmography, just a just a few of them, and it is long. It is way too long for one man, but
Mhm.
Gary Busey does his thing. Like I said, if you look at Silver Bullet, one of the main characters, great movie. If you look at see what else we got here. Wow, the Buddy Holly story. Played Buddy Holly. Great movie, right? Then you look at some of his other stuff, which I don't recognize, like all these other with weapon, side character, bad. Oh, Bulletproof, bad. Oh, he's in Predator 2. But he is like a main character though.
I don't remember him in Predator.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's one of the police guys. Now I feel like I would rewatch Predator 2 and be disappointed.
I know it wasn't as good as the first one.
Under
I know
Siege.
that. Well, I mean, is that Gary Busey's fault?
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Let's be honest here. We all know whose fault that movie is.
I'm just saying, keep that in mind. Like there's like I'm looking at a bunch of movies I've kind of vaguely remember of his, and they're not good because he's like little side characters. But then I'm seeing like, oh yeah, that's right. This movie he's the main character. It's pretty good. Call it the Gary Busey effect. That's a scientific theory that I've created.
I don't know. I don't know if that holds up. Seems like shaky.
I'm telling you, I want you to look up some.
I don't know if your sample size is large enough. It could just be he lucked out and was in a few good movies. But you know what I mean?
But if you think about it, he's only been the main character in a few movies.
Yeah.
He's typically a side character. Why? Gary Busey effect.
Well, maybe he's the smart one. It's like, no, I'm not taking the lead in this one. I'll just get a paycheck.
Which is the Gary Busey effect, right?
Yeah,
he knows it could be. There's no point in becoming the main character in this. I see what it's like. I'm going to be a side character, get my paycheck. Gary Busey effect. I'm just telling you, it's a theory I've had. I came up with this theory. Do I think it should be in a scientific journal somewhere? Probably.
Possibly, yeah.
I have a lot of rules and theories. And they're
I've noticed
they're all 100% correct. None of them has ever been disproven.
It's a bold statement.
Well, my ghost rules.
I don't know.
Perfectly explain the Sixth Sense.
All I know is I'm too old for this shit.
Well, man. Well, hey, let's wrap this up, shall we?
Yeah,
you're too old for this shit.
Get off this crazy train here.
Hey, once again, everybody, thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. If on Spot, leave us a 5-star review. It's the first year. Why start the first year giving lower than a 5-star? You know what I mean? It's a new year, new you. Don't be too old for this shit. 5 stars. If it's on Apple
Spotify, right?
On Spotify, well, wherever you listen to the podcast, you can
on
star rating on everything. 5 stars.
5 it up.
Everything. 5 it up. If it's on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. Tell me why you believe in the Gary Busey effect. I don't want to hear why you don't believe it. You do believe it, you just don't know it yet. So you tell me why. We also started putting episodes on YouTube, so please like and subscribe. You can find us at Loremasters Absurd on YouTube. Like and subscribe so you can watch the podcast and see Jeff's face as he furiously describes how bad this movie is. It's something special. You can also check us out on Facebook, Loremaster the Absurd. You can follow me on Instagram at Loremaster Eli. Jeff, where can they follow you?
Loremaster Jeff on Instagram. You can also you got Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
I zone out sometimes when you talk. I'm getting too old for this shit.
Apparently, you're too old for this shit. So make sure you find us, like us. New episodes drop every Monday.
YouTube's up on Wednesday.
YouTube's up. Oh, yeah, thank you. YouTube's up on Wednesday. New episodes on the podcast are on Monday on where you listen to your podcast. And please continue to go on this journey with us as we enter the new year with a bang. Not all these bangers bang bright. Some bang really dull, like Lethal Weapon.
Just no.
Hey, but we'll see what we got next time. But hey, everybody, catch y'all on down the road. And as Jeff says, he's too old for this shit.